Hi and welcome to Literary Hype. I am Stephanie, the Literary Hype Woman, and today's author conversation is a super fun one. Not just because the author is super fun, but because we did this in costume. Lori and I were doing a panel together at Fan Expo Chicago, so we decided we needed to do the whole day in costume. So she is dressed as Wonder Woman, I am Yor from the anime and manga Spy Family, and we had a grand old time, even though my sister was dressed as Anya and skipping around trying to distract us. We made it through. Lori's book, Bodies to Die For, is about a series of murder in the fit girl world and like bodybuilding world, so this is a really interesting topic with lots of conversation about body shaming and that whole world and like perspective on body culture. So if that's a trigger for you, be warned that we do talk about that a lot in this conversation. But without any further ado, here's my conversation with Lori Brand. Welcome to Literary Hype, Wonder Woman.
Thank you so very much for having me.
So first we're going to talk about our cosplays because I'm also in cosplay. I am Yor Forger from Spy Family and you're Wonder Woman.
Yes.
Why did you pick Wonder Woman?
I wanted to pick a strong female character. My book is really centered around getting strong, so I wanted to pick a strong female character.
Strong female characters are the best.
Yes.
Even if mine can't cook, she can still, kill a few people here and there when she needs to. So Comic-Con is super fun with the cosplays. You just got here, so have you seen any other cosplays that stand out to you thus far?
Yeah, I don't know what this woman was, but I saw a woman with red tights with like fishnets over them. It was like like kind of a cool webby effect that I thought was really nifty. I saw a guy dressed up as a robot. I saw whatever those little bears were in Star Wars, the fuzzy bears, Ewoks?
Yeah.
Ewoks? Okay, I saw somebody dressed up as an Ewok. He was very cute. He was grown up. He was very cute. I saw a guy walking around in like a Speedo.
That happens.
Things like that. Yeah.
It happens. And like, your book is so centered on body shaming and that whole diet fitness culture.
Yes.
And I've already seen posts from people saying that people are showing off too much skin here.
Yeah.
So kind of address how you can be more body positive in a space like Comic-Con.
First of all, I really think that we have to just quit judging each other's bodies and quit judging what people are doing with their bodies. If you're somebody who potentially is offended by a lot of skin, like, you may not even really want to come here, right? I mean, I don't think that there's anything shameful about our bodies. I don't think that there's anything shameful about the size of our bodies, about what we do with our bodies. And I really feel like Comic-Con here is a celebration of like theater and of creation and of all the cool things that people's bodies can do, right? They can be warrior princesses. They can be evil, scary people. They can be really commanding and tall and proud. They can be cute, fuzzy little things. I think it's wonderful. I'm very happy to be here. I think it's really positive. Yeah.
So before we get into the book, we kind of have to address your background.
Yes.
Because your background plays so heavily into the topics of this book.
Okay.
So I had to write them all down.
Okay.
There was no way I was going to remember all of them.
Okay.
A lifting enthusiast, group fitness instructor, yoga teacher, software engineer, gymnast, Playboy model, dancer, bodybuilder. There's a lot.
There is a lot. Yeah.
Which of those were your favorites and which were your least favorites to do?
So I very much enjoyed the time that I spent bodybuilding. It kind of got a little weird towards the end, and I decided to kind of take a step away from it. But I found that I still really embrace the getting strong, which is why I'm still a lifting enthusiast. I really strongly encourage people to lift weights. The Playboy model, I was only in one Playboy's book of lingerie once, but the thing that led me to that was that I actually, when I was in college, I worked as a stripper. And then after I got done with college, I continued to work as a stripper instead of getting like a good job. My parents were probably horrified. But I actually thought it was very fun. I ran around with a lot of really fun women who were enjoying life, who were enjoying feeling strong, getting paid for taking care of their bodies, and I actually found it to be very empowering. I enjoyed that. Right now I work as a software quality engineer, but I also on the weekends I work as a yoga instructor, and I really enjoy working as a yoga instructor. I think it's really wonderful to help people learn to tune into their breath and to tune into like what your body is telling you. I think our bodies are incredibly wise, and I think if we, during the week we're so busy with our jobs, with so many people pulling us in so many different directions, if we can take the time to sort of tune all of that out and turn inward and really listen to how we're feeling, you might notice that like your shoulders are tight. Why are they tight? Maybe during the week you've been tensed up. And if you can kind of let that go, and you can take some skills with yoga off the mat with you. You can tune into your breath anytime, and it's that mindfulness. If you can carry that off of the mat, I think that's wonderful. And then I'm just gonna stick with yoga for a minute. And the other wonderful thing about yoga. So, do you do yoga?
No.
Okay. So at the end,
I did a little bit when I was in rowing.
Okay.
And we would do that to work on our flexibility, but it was like, oh, we can't go in the water. Let's do yoga.
Well, so at the end of yoga, you might remember this. Very, very frequently, people will say namaste, right? The teacher will say namaste to you. You'll say namaste back, right? So namaste is Sanskrit, and what it translated into English, it roughly means the divine light in me sees and honors the divine light in you. And that's such a wonderful thing that, if you can see the divine in somebody else, if you can see the divine spark in somebody else, it makes it a lot harder to be cruel. It makes it a lot harder to turn away. And I'm just a really big fan of seeing that divine even in the people that you're disagreeing with, because there is that divine spark in all of us. And I would just like to see that manifest throughout mankind.
What a nice message.
I don't know.
I feel like some of the other voice actors and actors have kind of touched on that this weekend.
Okay.
So maybe it's something we all need to listen to.
Okay.
So your background deals a lot with physicality and body movement. What has spending so many years focused on how your body moves and thinking about that, how has that helped you with your writing?
So it was a really big inspiration for my writing. I'm going to go back to, I first became aware of diet culture when I was in 4th grade. Have you heard this story?
No.
Okay, so my dance instructor, in an effort to lose weight, had her jaw wired shut. And I was like, what? My mom told me this, while she was driving me to dance one day. She said, oh, by the way, Barb's not going to be teaching for the next few months. She'll still be there, but she'll be sitting up on the side. She'll have a notebook, and Jill's her assistant. She'll be teaching. But, Barb's not. And I said, well, why is she not teaching? My mom said, well, Barb had her jaw wired shut. And I said, well, why did she have her jaw wired shut? And my mom said, well, she wanted to lose some weight. And I was like, what? And it was just, all these questions. And then we pull up next to it's at the school, right? Dance is at the school. We pull up next to the school. And my mom's like, okay, out you go. And I'm like, but what? I still have all these questions. And she's like, no, don't go in there asking a bunch of people about them, right? You're just going to make Barb uncomfortable. Just don't do it, right? And so I get out of the car and I go, and all these other little girls are walking in, and all their moms are walking them in, or getting dropped off, and nobody's freaking out. Nobody's freaking out. And over the next few months, I watch, because Barb's sitting over on a little chair in the corner, she starts to shrink. She gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And at one point, I did something, I probably was misbehaving, but she pointed at me and she motioned for me to come over. And so I whenever they're my taps, she just tap, tap, tap. And I get over there, and I don't remember what I did wrong. But and she's talking to me like this because her jaw is wired shut, and I kind of got to lean in to hear her. But then I realized that there weren't any parents around, and so nobody would ever. I didn't think anybody would find out if I just straight up asked her. And so I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. So I said, did you really have your jaw wired shut? And she said, yeah. I said, can you show me the wires? And she put her finger in her mouth and she pulled it back, and you could see these wires going up and down. They looked like sharp, pointy teeth because they were zigzagging up and down between her top and her lower teeth. And it left such an enormous impression on me. It was absolutely scary that, how important was it to not get too big? It was that important that a grown woman would wire her jaw shut and the whole world would shrug. And ever since then, since I've probably been 10 years old, it's just been on my radar every time that I had some friends. I was a gymnast in high school. I had some friends that had some pretty significant eating disorders. One was hospitalized. One had to have a spoon cut out of her, out of her chest because she swallowed a little tiny spoon, and it got stuck in her esophagus or something. And then in college, getting the side gig as a stripper. I've just been very sort of hyper aware on how women perceive themselves, right? Women who often will look very great, but how harshly they'll judge themselves, but then also how harshly society also can judge people. But one thing I will say that I realized, and this is a good part actually about being a stripper. If you're a stripper for a number of years, you will probably start to realize that every girl, you'll always have your top girls and things like that, but every girl will have somebody who thinks she's perfect. She's perfect, right? And when it really hit home for me is I had a friend who was she was like one of our top girls. Everybody loved her. She was a very voluptuous girl. And one night she came in and she was crying. I was talking to her and she was crying because her boyfriend, who was a trainer, is a physical trainer, a personal trainer or something. She was eating dinner before she came in that night. He picked up her plate and he took it away, like while she was eating, because he thought that she was too heavy. And then I still remember it was a Saturday night, right? And I remember then watching her later on that evening. She made all this money and all these people just thought she was beautiful. And I thought to myself, okay, like, she's just dating the wrong guy, right? Like, and it really drove home to me sort of the twofold thing is that you could never please everybody. Beauty standards are elusive. If you look back through time, they're elusive, right? They change over time. I mean, I'm 54 years old, right? I lived through the 80s, right? I mean, it changes. It goes up, it goes down, it goes every which way. And then even within this current time that we're living in, there will still be different people who will like you a different way. So if you're always trying to please somebody else, you will never, ever really find that peace within yourself, right? You have to please yourself and to try to hit these external beauty standards. I think it's just really it's a self-defeating game. And I realized that once I realized that, I really realized that like getting strong was the answer. Like if you change your thinking to like, I want to do a push-up, or I want to walk a mile, I want to run a mile, I want to do a pull-up, I don't know, I want to swim 100 yards, whatever strong is to you. If you could change if you can set your sights on that, if those are your goals, those are like attainable goals, right? Like, you can do a push-up. If you put in the time, you can do it, right? And that's something that you can tick off, and then you can say, I did it. And it's that sense of empowerment. Nobody can take that away from you, but I did a fucking push-up. I can do that, right? And it's a different mentality. Instead of like trying to lose weight to shrink, which is like getting smaller, like you're making your needs small. It like metastasizes, right? It throughout your whole life, right? Shrinking versus that growth mentality, that getting strong mentality. It's a completely different mentality. Instead of like, I can't eat this, you think to yourself, well, I need to support growth, right? How can I fuel my body? How can I nourish my body? And it was that enormous game changer that happened, I don't know, maybe like 15 years ago for me, is when I had like this epiphany. And that's when I started writing for women's fitness magazines. But I'm just such a believer that if you could just, I don't even know how we got on this, but if you could switch your goal to getting strong, it will like save you.
You touched on the shrinking, taking up space. Yeah. And that I feel like is something that applies even to our culture now.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
Women shouldn't take up space.
Yes.
In any capacity.
Yes. Getting physically strong, it also makes you mentally strong, and you're more likely, I find, to speak up, right? You realize that you can do hard things, right? You can handle adversity because strength training, it's a long game, right? You got to put in the time, it's strenuous, it's work. And you just start to realize over time that like, I can do these hard things, and I can take some adversity. I can take some heat. I can take people not liking me. I can take people saying mean things to me, and I can just let it roll off of me because I know that like, I'm a good person. I'm strong, and I'm being like true to my values. So I don't know, maybe I'm just getting older too, but like I just really feel I would like just encourage everybody to like want to get strong. And again, it's what that is to you. Some people it might be Pilates. Some people it might just be walking at night. It makes them feel strong. I don't know. But for me, it's lifting weights.
Well, that sets us up to talk about where things are in this book of yours.
Okay.
It's called Bodies to Die For.
Yeah.
So tell us what this book is about if people haven't already seen it online.
Okay, great. So the book is about the clash of the fitness influencers and the fat activists, and a series of fit girl murders that result. But really at its core, it's about the war on women's bodies, the wars that we wage on each other and the wars that we wage on ourselves. We've got Gemma, who is she's a professional bikini bodybuilder. And we have Ashley, who is a software engineer who falls in with a group of fat activists. And it's these two sides clashing, and there's a series of murders that result, and the whole thing climaxes at the Olympia, which is the biggest bodybuilding competition in the world. And anyway, that's how it goes down.
What, from your experience in all of these fitness-focused cultures, led to you wanting to write this novel?
Oh my gosh, I can tell you exactly. I know. Okay, so in January of 2020, Jillian Michaels was interviewed on BuzzFeed News. And when asked what she thought of Lizzo as a body acceptance role model, she said, why are we celebrating her body? Why aren't we celebrating her music? Because it isn't going to be awesome if she gets diabetes. And I don't know if you remember, but social media blew up, right? People were calling for Jillian's head. Other people were saying, because people were accusing Jillian Michaels of fat shaming, but then there was a whole other segment, because I've taught fitness classes and things, I'm also friends with a lot of people who are in that business, and a lot of those people were saying we have to quit normalizing obesity. And it was this clashing of two sides, and it wasn't just disagreeing, really awful things were being said online, really hateful, mean things. And it was mostly women saying these mean things to each other. And I couldn't believe how they were tearing each other apart. And then, and Jillian Michaels, I think, came out within 24 hours or something and apologized. But it just went over the course of days, maybe longer, the hatred. And then a few months after that, Adele posted a picture. Oh, that's my other outfit. I was going to be Lara Croft. But anyway, I'm sorry about that. But I was almost Lara Croft as another outfit. But anyway, the other thing that happened is that Adele posted a picture of herself to Instagram. It was a birthday picture, and all it was a picture of herself on her birthday. But it was clear in the picture that she had lost a lot of weight. And all of these people came out of, again, the woodwork. The comments just blew up. A lot of people were saying that they were disappointed. They were disappointed that Adele had lost weight. They felt that she let them down because they viewed her as a body positive role model. And then a whole bunch of other people came out and they said, no, this is really great. Adele is getting healthy and this, that, and the other thing. And there was so much controversy that Adele actually came out with a statement, maybe a month or two later. I don't even know how much later, but sometime later she came out with a statement. And she said that she had been going through a dark time and that she turned to exercise to help her cope with it, right? And that's a good thing. But a woman ought to be able to post a picture of herself to Instagram without having to come out with a statement, all right? Can you imagine? I mean, you shouldn't have to. Adele doesn't owe her body to any of us, right? None of us have to come out with statements about, if we get bigger, if we get smaller. We don't owe anybody our body. And it was those two instances that really, really got me thinking about, as a fitness instructor, because I've also taught group fitness. I've taught a lot of strength classes. I've taught spinning classes. I'm just not teaching those two right now. But and I love lifting weights. I love working out. So there's a lot of good about getting fit, but having been a bodybuilder, there's a lot of ugliness behind the curtain that people don't see, right? So I think a lot of people might be aware that there's kind of an ugliness, that there can be an ugliness to that fitness culture, that wellness culture. But what we were starting to see here was also a ugly side to the healthy at any size movement, which I've been a big fan of also. I really like the idea that you don't have to wait until you're a certain size to start living your life. Jennifer Weiner wrote a book years ago called Good in Bed. Actually, no, now I'm thinking of Dietland. I'm thinking of Dietland by Saray Walker, where Plum, the main character, she thinks to herself, well, once I lose weight, I'm going to start living my life. You shouldn't have to wait till you get a certain size to buy a new wardrobe, to live your life, to go to the beach in a bikini, to do this, that, the other thing. But we were starting to see this almost ugly side of it too, where there was a group of people who were feeling like other larger people owed them their bodies as role models and that they couldn't change that. And I didn't like to see that. And it was, because I had liked both sides and I was seeing these ugly undercurrents on both sides. And I just thought, like, is nobody gonna speak, right? Nobody who's got like some sort of background in this. And like this little voice kind of inside of me went like, well, why don't you, right? Because I've been writing articles at that point for like fitness magazines and things. So I had a little bit of cred in that area. But I had that bodybuilding background and things. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just gonna say what I want to say and I'm gonna throw it out there and, we'll see how it goes. And that's what I did.
So what was the biggest challenge for you in going from writing nonfiction fitness articles to a novel?
Well, it's a lot harder to get it published. I'll say that much. That's one thing. It was also liberating. With nonfiction articles, you have to fit whatever magazine you're writing for. You have to fit their voice. You also usually only get, say, 800 words or 1,000 words, or it's a smaller amount of space, and it's got to appeal to whatever they've got going on like that month. You can write articles. Well, I suppose you could write articles and they might not sell, but same with a book. You can write a book and it might not sell. But with articles, you're being much more factual. A lot of times, like, you'll cite a study. This was just pure. You can be much more imaginative, and when you can be imaginative, it's a way of like working your themes in without being so heavy-handed about them. It's a way of kind of almost like getting like a backdoor into like somebody's mind. Like I want to get my thoughts across, and I'm just going to kind of sneak in through the back door and show you all the ways that body shaming can be damaging. Rather than writing an article about all the ways that body shaming is damaging, it's kind of almost like a sneaky way just to show it.
It's that empathy that comes in when you can put yourself into a character's perspective that you kind of see why they're doing they're doing. Yeah.
I want to say one more thing though about a book that makes it harder than an article. So with an article, you can write it, in a couple days, right? You probably write it one day and clean it up and straighten it out the next day. And then you try to sell it. You see if anybody's going to buy it or not. Or if you're working with an editor, you already know that that's what they want and they'll buy it. With a book, you've got to invest a whole lot of time, a whole lot of yourself. You're much more vulnerable. First of all, it's just you're putting all this time into it, and the odds you're going to sell it are almost nil, right? It's almost impossible to get an agent. And then a lot of first books that are even aged and don't sell. So there's a really good chance that all your hard work will be for naught and it won't get out there. And then also, because it's fiction, I mean, even though it's fiction, like, I'm all over this book, right? Like, people who know me, who have read it, say they can hear my voice when they're reading it. So when somebody doesn't like what you have to say, I've got a couple one-star reviews. I have more than one. I got a few one-star reviews on Goodreads. They're attacking the thing that you worked so hard on, that you believe in so strongly, and that you've like held it out to the world. And fortunately, a lot of people will like it. Actually, the majority of people won't even know that you wrote it, right? They won't even hear about it. Some will just not even want to read it. Some will love it, some will like it, but some people won't like it, and it's a challenge that way. Whereas like nonfiction, I don't even know if people don't like my articles or not, right? Nobody goes on Goodreads and says an article in Strong Fitness Magazine sucked. I mean, I'm not aware of it, but on Goodreads, man, they'll let you know what they don't like. Yeah.
Goodreads is not the place for authors to hang out. Not for authors.
I've read every review of mine too, which I shouldn't do, but I have. Yeah.
Oh yeah, James and I got into it on that.
Yeah.
That's quite a controversial topic.
Yeah.
As long as you're lurking and not like attacking people.
No.
That's the thing.
There's one person who left me a really good review, And she picked out this line out of my book, and she had said how much she liked it, and that this was back when it was just arcs and the book wasn't out there yet. And she said, I really love this line. I hope it makes it into the final book. And it's like the only time I responded. I said, it did make it in there. And I said, it's one of my favorite lines. I remember when I wrote that line, okay? And that line's been untouched since I wrote it. But it's like the only time I responded, but I normally don't. But I was like, I love that she loved that line too. And damn it, that made it into the final version. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this book is told from multiple points of view.
Mm-hmm.
How did you keep them all straight? Did you write one character's through line?
No.
Do it piece by piece?
Piece by piece.
Are you a plotter or a pantser?
No. Okay. So at the time, this is so awful. So I didn't even really know. I didn't really know a lot about what I was doing. I didn't plot the book at all. I just wrote the whole book. I had written a whole other book prior to this, a different book, different subject. It was still a thriller, but I was never able to get an agent for that. But I'm really glad I did it because I learned a lot from doing that. And so this time after I wrote my whole book, I set it aside. Then I picked it back up. I made it as tight as I could. I got some beta readers. I got the beta reader feedback. Again, I made it as tight as I could. I made it as tight as I could. Then I took it out. I was able to get an agent after a few months. But then he and I are talking. It's one of our first meetings after he's already signed me, right? And he says, so, in the middle of this act 2, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what are you talking about, act 2? He goes, act 2. I said, well, how many acts are there? He goes, there's 3. And I was like, and we got off the phone, Ava, and the first thing I did is I Googled 3-act story structure. And I was like, get out. There's like an actual metric for that. I like that would have saved me so much time. I mean, fortunately, I read a lot of thrillers, so I hit most of those beats. But because he helped. He's a very developmental agent. He helped me kind of clean that up. But at the time, I did not plot that book. I had no idea that I was entering the end of Act 1. I wish I would have. It would have saved me a lot of time. Yeah. My second book, which he's got right now, he's reviewing it. We're in edits for it. I roughly plotted it, not heavy plotted it, but I did know what my inciting incident was. I knew my some of my bigger beats before I wrote it, whereas I had no idea what I was doing in that first book, none at all. Yeah.
So how did you keep the POV straight?
I just did. I just did because I wanted, so first I started with the 2 women, right? And I wanted them to be, almost like polar opposites. So they were pretty easy to keep straight. And then I started to add people whose different perspectives I thought I should have. I added them in as third person, which also I now know that it's harder to sell a book that way. I didn't know that at the time. Oops. I still like that it is that way. But I don't know. I just when I felt like I wanted to hear from a character, there were even more characters that I ended up cutting. But I don't know. I kind of just kept them straight. I knew who I knew what I wanted, and that's the character that I created for that particular thing I was trying to illustrate.
What's it like for you creating a character that is only existing to die? Because a lot of characters die.
Yeah. So in all the character, there's one in particular. I don't have her go down easy, right? Like she goes down like fighting and swinging. I don't know. I was actually a little sad about. I actually like all my characters that I killed. I actually really do. I actually really liked them. I don't know. The book I'm writing now has a character that dies in it that I'm a little sad about. But they've served their purpose. They're dying a good death because they did what they came to do.
So in this book, there's a little sabotage at the bodybuilding competition.
Yes.
How realistic is that to real life bodybuilding competition?
So I've actually never seen that. I added that just to make the book interesting. I will say that I don't want bodybuilding to actually get a bad rap, or I should say I don't want bodybuilders to get a bad rap. bodybuilders are actually some of the kindest people that you'll ever meet. I've really realized this. I think the type of thing that's going to drive somebody to do something like that, I'm not talking like somebody who lifts weights, but somebody, if you're going to be a competitive bodybuilder, if you're going to cut all the way down like that, you've probably got something driving you, some sort of ghost or something. I don't know what, but they're some of the kindest people I've ever met. I've actually never seen. I've never seen sabotage. I've seen, as a matter of fact, I've seen pulling together. I think that there's I can't remember if I cut this one or not, where somebody lost an earring, and actually it's the shoes now, and they're there, but where somebody else finds some shoes and says you can use these. I've seen that. I've seen girls have a side of a bikini break, and I've seen people be like, you can I've got another one, you can use this. I've seen people rally. I've seen somebody who feels like they did terrible and come off the stage and cry, and I've seen people rally around her. I've actually only seen people be really supportive with each other, actually. But that's not a thriller, so I had to have some sabotage. Yeah.
What fun would it be?
Yeah.
If there wasn't a little shenanigans happening here.
I have seen jerky coaches, though.
So since this book does deal a lot with social media, and what you're told in social media is you've got to really niche down. But you have multiple niches. So how do you balance the writing side with the fitness side of your Instagram?
I'm not really a big social media fan. I kind of came on social media screaming and kicking. The first article I ever wrote was called Master the Pull-Up, and I couldn't sell it. I couldn't get anybody to buy it. I couldn't get anybody to even publish it. And because who am I? Nobody knows who I am. I'm just somebody, right? And so my very first post is of me doing a pull-up, and I put myself doing a pull-up up there, and then I reached out to Inside Fitness Magazine, and I tried to sell that article. And the very next day they took it, right? And I was like, so that's how you do it, right? And so I started then doing more fitness stuff on Instagram, mostly so I would have some sort of cred to write these fitness articles. So I had that whole thing going before I wrote this book. Fortunately, the book's got a fitness theme, so it kind of works together there. And so now I've kind of had to sort of mesh them back and forth. I'm sure I've got some people who really just are there for the exercise stuff. I'm sure I've got some people who are really just there for the book stuff, and they probably just each have to tolerate a little bit of the other stuff in between. I don't know.
You wear a lot of really great tank tops.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I suppose, so they're very, very funny.
I love my tank tops.
Which one's your favorite?
So I've got a few. Okay, so one of my favorites is I clean, I jerk, I have a nice snatch. My husband hates that shirt. When I wear that to the gym with him, he's like, oh, God. But I love that. I love that shirt. If people don't know, a clean and a jerk and a snatch, they're all one's called a clean and jerk and one's called a snatch, and they're Olympic lifts. And I do Olympic. I don't do it as much anymore because I kind of messed up my shoulder. Now I just do it occasionally, but I actually do have I have an okay snatch. But anyway, and then I have another one that I've got a few t-shirts. I've got one that says lats, traps, and no thigh gaps. I love that one. I've got one that says thick thighs save lives. I've got that one. And then I've got another one. I don't wear it as much, but it says feed me and tell me I'm pretty. And then I've got one more that I really like. It says, my husband doesn't like this one either. It says, eat your vegetables, do your squats, and don't let boys be mean to you. He also is like, God, don't wear that at the gym with me because he's afraid that people think I don't know. But really it's the snatch one he really doesn't like. But I've got a lot more. I got tons
that's
of
the
t-shirts.
one that stood out the most to me. As someone who's done all of those.
Yeah.
Cracked me up.
Okay. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite lift?
I do actually. Absolutely. My favorite lift, hands down, is the snatch. I don't do it I did it way too much, and I have kind of messed up my shoulder a little bit. So I do it. I've gone through phases where I stopped for 3 months or 6 months. I've done the physical therapy, and then I've started again, and within 4, 5, 6 months, my shoulder gets kind of messed up again. I stop for 2-3 months. I do the physical therapy. I start back again in a few more months. And so now, right now, I'm on sort of a break again with occasional snatching thrown in, because otherwise I get almost kind of, it's my favorite lift. There's nothing that makes you feel more of a badass than doing a snatch. It's my favorite. I got some other things I like too, but that's my favorite. Yeah.
I remember the first time my weightlifting coach
Yeah.
showed us that. He showed us an Olympic fail.
Okay.
Tearing.
Ooh.
Totally messing up the shoulder, and we're all like traumatized.
Okay.
And he's like, now you're going to go do that.
Okay.
And you're going to listen to me so you don't end up like that. And we're like, I don't want to. Please don't make me.
Oh my God. Okay.
Coach Cup.
Okay.
That was rude. You mentioned a second book. What can you tell us about that?
It's completed right now, but like I said, we're in edits. I don't want to say too much about it because we haven't taken it out yet, but this time I've only got just two characters, both women. And one of the characters is a reluctant advice columnist, and another character is a software developer turned OnlyFans creator, because I'm very interested. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's like a total crisis going on right now in tech, like a total crisis in tech right now. There's been tons and tons of layoffs and everything. And so this character in my book, she is a software developer, but there have been so many layoffs that she's worried about her job. So she gets a little side gig as an OnlyFans creator. People find out, she loses her job, and then it's her doing this. And I'm not going to go too much further into it, but I really wanted to explore, again, what society tells us we can and we can't do with our bodies. You know, everybody's got a lot of ideas, opinions on what women can do with their bodies. And so I just wanted to explore that. And then the other one's an advice columnist, but she's a reluctant advice columnist. She gets saddled with the job. She was like Dear Debbie's assistant, and then Dear Debbie takes off for Brazil with like a younger guy, and so she gets stuck answering these letters. They're still addressed to Dear Debbie. She answers them as Dear Debbie. She answers them in Dear Debbie speak, but that's not her real voice, right? And she's also very insecure. Like, she's answering all these people's. She's only like 28 years old, and she's never been married or had kids or anything. And her last job was at Starbucks, and she's answering like all these like questions about like marriage and raising kids, and so she's just very insecure. And so it's these two people, I guess, and mirroring them. And I won't say much more about it.
Well, the last question we always ask, because this is literary hype, what books are you hyped about right now? Okay,
Susan Walter has a book coming out in October called Running Cold. Love it. I read an arc of it. I just so love it. TJ Newman has a book that just came out.
Worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, yes. Yeah. And I'm actually going to go see her tomorrow night. She's in Chicago, downtown at Exile and Bookville. Yep. So I'm going to see her at that, and I'm getting the hard copy. I haven't read an arc of that, but I'm going to buy the hard copy there and get her to sign that. I'm really excited for that one. David Ellis's book, The Best Lies, that came out in July. I absolutely loved it. Big fan of that too. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for hanging out with Literary Hype.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks again to Lori for hanging out with me at Fan Expo Chicago to talk about her book, Bodies to Die For. If you want to get a hold of this, the link to do so are down in the show notes for you. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the Literary Hype channel, like this video, and share it with a friend. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.